Welcome back to the Autry Benton Show. We're going to step back in time today and look at the history of Horry County, more particularly Conway and Myrtle Beach. But to know the history of the area, there's one family that's contributed a lot, and that's the Burroughs family. So today we have Egerton Burroughs sitting down, talking the history of our area. Mr. Egerton, thank you for joining me today.
Well, I appreciate being here. Thank you so much.
I've looked forward to this for a long time.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you for the time.
Well, thank you.
And as I said in my opening, when you look at the history of our area, your family's contributed a lot to our area. I mean, on a lot of major things.
Well, our family has been here quite a while, and there are a lot of families that's made Horry County what it is today. The Rosens, the Vereenes, Hardys, I could go on and on, the Smiths, but we've all worked together through the years, and Horry County is a wonderful place.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You know, a while back, I think it was at the First Presbyterian Church in Myrtle Beach that you did a good talk, you know, and certainly I'm from Conway, and we all work at the beach, but I was so interested how you started in Conway with the history of your family. And Mr. F.G. Burroughs, I'm going to let you pick it up from there and talk to us.
Well, I have an interesting family, and I was blessed to grow up in Conway. I grew up on Applewhite Lane. My first memories were just walking around barefooted, and my aunts lived all next door, my granddaddy's sisters. My father was an artist, and he had a studio, and we didn't have any cell phones or anything. And my father had polio when he was young, so he didn't really know how to fish, hunt, or sport. So I didn't get into a lot of things that other children did. But I walked around and I talked with my granddaddy's sisters and my granddaddy a lot. And they told me old stories of Conway and them growing up. Their daddy, Mr. F.G., came to Conway before the Civil War, not too long before the Civil War. And he was working in the turpentine and timber with some people. And when the war came along, he enlisted in the Confederate Army and fought in several battles and was captured at Chickamauga.
Oh, wow.
And then he was taken up north and went to prison. And a lot of times they say he walked most of the way home from Chicago. But anyway, he got back and he grew up, and he had Mr. Don, he had Mr. Frank, he had a brother, Arthur, a sister, Lucille, Bess, and Effie. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them lived right here in the neighborhood where I was. So I heard a lot of stories. One of them that I got tickled about, my grandfather and Aunt Lucille and all of them said when they were growing up, they had one of the first bathrooms with water. And they had an outhouse with several stalls and a barrel, and they could pull it, and the water would kind of flush it down into the lake. But that is going back to when they were born. There was no plumbing. There was no electricity. They had, sometimes they had carbide lights and different things, but mostly lamps.
Right.
So they grew up around Conway, and great-granddaddy got into a lot of different things. He had some good partners in some of them. But they wound up building and operating some steamboats. They were in the turpentine business, lumber.
Mr. Egerton, explain to some of our younger listeners, why turpentine was such a big thing early on back then.
Turpentine was an interesting business, and the way they gathered it, they would take a pine tree and cut angles in it. Mm-hmm. And they'd put a little pot at the bottom of where the angles were, and then a wagon would go around and collect the pots, and then they would take it to a turpentine still, and they would cook it down. And the product was turpentine, tar, rosin. And in those days, most of the boats around the world were wooden boats. And the tar was critical to keep those going. And the turpentine had medicinal use, paint thinners, and all that. And then the rosin was used for different things, like, for one thing, the violins.
Oh, wow.
But the rosin, but there's a lot of medical uses, naval uses, and that's what really pushed that. And it pushed our family to get more and more into the turpentine, and we would distill it, and other people did. It was not just us. Mm-hmm. You would distill it, put it in barrels, the tar, and it went by steamboat to Georgetown.
Okay.
At Georgetown, the sailboats would come in. They would load up the turpentine, the tar, the lumber, whatever they could get, take it up north to other places.
So Mr. F.G. Burroughs, he started his own turpentine business.
Yeah.
And then he had steamboats. So if you come into Conway, there's a picture of it. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, they built steamboats and operated them out of Conway. Right across from downtown Conway, there was like a little boatyard. Mm-hmm. And they would build and repair them. The bigger boats would go from Conway to Georgetown. The smaller boats, the Ruth, the Maggie, they would go upriver to trade with people and bring supplies to Conway.
Okay.
But Conway was where we had the boats. And there's a good story about those boats. My grandmother would tell this story on my grandfather quite often.
Right.
When he did something that she wanted to kind of mess with him. My grandfather, Mr. Don, was a very quiet fellow. He smoked his pipe and never got riled up. And she said one day, it was early in the morning, and someone was banging on the door of the house. And they came in and said, Mr. Don, where's Mr. Don? And Miss Georgie said, well, he's waking up right now.
Yeah.
And he came in there in his pajamas, and they said, Mr. Don, there's a boat on fire. She's burning and it's fully loaded.
Oh, boy.
It's loaded with, they had it loaded with turpentine, everything getting ready to go. And he said, tis to me, a man up a tree, up a tree, up a tree. And Miss Georgia said he kept repeating that till he got his clothes on and they went over there. But that boat burnt.
Oh, boy.
And the hull, you can still see it when the water's low over the little bridge that goes down off of 4th Avenue across the lake. Mm-hmm. I used to love to fish around it, catch good brim and all.
Wow.
But there was a boatyard there, the boats.
Wow.
But an interesting part about the boats, when they took the cargo down to Georgetown, those sailboats, when they left the north, they had to have ballast in them. So the ballast in those boats a lot of times was ice. Blocks of ice. So they would bring that ice back to Conway, and people had ice houses. They were built out of sawdust, boards, and they would put the ice in there, and then most families had an ice box.
Right.
So you had to have an ice cube to make it work.
It's amazing. Things we just take for granted now were just huge in those days to get ice.
Oh, yeah, it's just amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah.
And Aunt Lucille, Aunt Effie, and Aunt Bess would say they would get a crowd together and take picnic lunches and all, and they would ride the steamboat from Conway to Georgetown.
Wow.
And they might make a churn of ice cream or whatever, and they might spend the night in Georgetown, then come back.
Wow.
But Georgetown was a big trading area and had a lot going on.
So on your grandfather's steamboat, he'd have turpentine and he'd have lumber at times on it. Yeah. Wow. So he was harvesting timber then.
Yeah, they did timber. Everybody did in that boat.
Right.
Carry other people's property other than ours.
Okay.
There were a lot of people in turpentine business, people in timber. There was an old cotton gin, and it was down there, but it never did much because cotton didn't grow well.
Yeah.
They tried it.
Wow.
But that boat would take potatoes or other things, whatever would be grown, down to market in Georgetown.
Wow. Wow. So Mr. Don was your grandfather, correct?
Yes.
Yes. I got you. And you remember him well?
I would go to his house quite often, back in the neighborhood barefooted.
Right.
And our relationship just kept growing through the years. And he would tell me stories about the Civil War. Some people call it the War of Northern Aggression.
Yeah.
But the battles and where Mr. F.G. fought, and he would go into the different stories. He would take me down sometimes to Charleston, stay in the old Fort Sumter, and he would show me different parts of where the battles were fought. Later on in life, when he got older, he would ask me to drive him places, and we would visit the battlefields.
Oh, really? I bet those are some good times.
Those were great times, and when I was little, polio was very common. And my father had polio, and his cousin Henry and others, and they would send the women and the children to the mountains in the summer. So I spent a lot of time every summer at Linville Falls. And my cousin Jean and the children would go. The men would alternate coming and going every so often, bringing supplies or medicines or whatever. And the women and children would stay there. And we would hear different stories from different folks.
Wow. Well, that's something. Wow.
With the mountain people.
Did you enjoy those times up there?
Yeah.
Had a good time?
Yeah, there was, like I said, there was nothing but a radio, and we would play games, and we learned how to sneak around in the rhododendrons with the locals.
Right.
And go to people's spring boxes.
Yeah.
That was their form of refrigeration.
Right.
And we'd sneak in there as kids and get stuff out.
A little bit of mischief.
And a little mischief. But we would play games and stuff. And
yeah.
At that point in time, it was after the World War II. And some of them would be Germans, and some of us would be Americans. And sometimes we would play Yankees and
Yeah.
Southerners.
That was the times when kids used to play outside.
We played outside as long as we could.
Yeah. Let me ask you about this, Mr. Egerton. Going back to Horry County, it's maybe for our listeners, people that moved here and see how Myrtle Beach is big and more of a tourist town, to really know that it was a very agricultural and farming area, and how it's changed.
Yeah. As I got older,
Yeah.
and I was so glad when I was able to go to work at 14. I'd had me a lawn mowing business,
Right.
but when I got so I could go to the grocery store and work,
Yeah.
that tickled me.
Yeah, I know.
But in those days, for instance, on Saturdays, people would come to town lots of times with a pickup truck, and they would buy a 50-pound stand of lard, 50 pounds of rice, meats like that. And they might not come back, but they were mostly in the farming business of tobacco. Tobacco was our mainstay for the longest time, and we had to write down the sugar. If someone came in and got anything over a 5-pound bag of sugar, you had to write it down.
Yeah.
If it was 25, 50 pounds, because there was so much bootlegging going on,
Yeah.
and they wanted to keep a record of who was buying sugar. So that was part of the business.
Yeah. Let me step back in time with you a little bit. A major thing, I guess, when you talk about early on with the steamships and stuff, but your family was instrumental in taking the railroad from Conway to Myrtle Beach. Am I right in saying that?
That's correct. We got in the railroad business primarily to get the turpentine out. And the railroad went from Aner to Conway, and then we wanted to get it over to the beach. And my grandfather, Mr. Don, he was on the surveying crew.
Wow.
And he talked about going through the woods, and the worst part of it to him was when they went through what we call now the Carolina Bays. And he said there were birds out there that would fly all around, and he called them scoggins.
Scoggins.
And they would be out there trying to survey, and the birds would defecate on them. And he said the scoggins were the curse. But, they got the railroad to the beach, and they finally figured out it would probably be a good thing to sell it, and they did.
Yeah.
And when they sold it, it of course tied into a major line up into Chadbourn. And then we started getting outside traffic on that railroad.
That had to be an undertaking, though, to cut that line, that rail line from Conway to the beach. I can't, like your grandfather, I bet there's no telling what he saw.
Well, they saw all kind of things, but you think about having to buy a locomotive.
That's an investment, isn't it?
They bought the first locomotive, I think it came off of an elevated rail line up in New York or something.
Yeah.
And they brought it in.
And I guess y'all did that, so y'all started trucking supplies on your rail line once you got it up. Did y'all own some land in Myrtle Beach already then, a significant amount of land?
We bought land to get pine trees.
Okay.
So we had a good bit of land over there, and really trying to get the pine trees and get the turpentine and the rosin out.
Yeah, and to bring our listeners back, Myrtle Beach, you just said it, the land was not for tourism; it was for farmland and for pine trees and those kind of needs.
Primarily, it was for the pine trees. We tried through the years to grow crops over there of different types. We even tried to have some cattle one time, but we never had much luck with the soil.
Yeah.
The only family that seemed to do well was the Trask family, and they leased land from us, rented land for produce.
Okay.
They were big in Beaufort. They had produce operation up in Wilmington and at the beach. But the soil just wasn't conducive to it.
Yeah. Well, and so most people in Horry County didn't care about if it didn't grow tobacco, good crops. They didn't want anything to do with it, did they?
It really wasn't high on the
Priority
priority.
list.
And then we had the land, and when the turpentine business died out, when the steel hulls were built,
Explain that to us, why it changed.
it changed because dramatically, 'cause when they got out of wooden vessels into metal, the demand for the product dropped rapidly.
Yeah.
And not only for us, but throughout the South. Turpentine was big, Georgia and other places. And
Right.
when that market fell, you had to do something else. And so we started trying to sell a lot or two at the beach to get something going.
Going, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, didn't you say once your family started selling lots, if you sold a lot, you gave a lot away? Was there, remind me of that story possibly, that incentives y'all were trying to get people to buy?
Yeah. It was kind of hard to sell dirt to a place that wouldn't grow crops. And you got to remember there was no air conditioning, no power. It was a different time. We got a partner over at the beach, Mr. Chapin, Mr. Simeon Chapin. He wanted to buy some land at the beach, and a real estate broker brought it to us.
Okay.
And he used to go to Pinehurst and all, and he came down and looked at the beach, and he thought it was pretty good. So they said they'd make a deal. He went back up to Chicago and got some people to come down here and bring their wives
Okay.
that were going to run it for him. And they came down and looked at it, and they went back and told Mr. Chapin, we can't go down there. It's very primitive. And
Primitive.
and my wives won't go, and frankly, we don't want to go either. So he came down and said, he just decided not to buy. And the outcome of that, we became partners.
Okay.
So we took part of the land and put it in business with Mr. Chapin, and that was called Myrtle Beach Farms. So when Mr. Chapin joined us, he was a very traveled person. He'd seen development in Florida and other places. He had a summer home at Lake Geneva,
Okay.
Wisconsin, along with some other people, and he knew a lot about development of the way things should be. He was a great visionary, and I think Mr. Chapin's thoughts about developing the beach and how to cut up lots and roads and have private lots, but everybody could get to the beach.
Right.
Mr. Chapin deserves a lot of credit for making the streets open to the public to get on the beaches in front of people's houses. And that was a huge part of Myrtle Beach. So Mr. Chapin came in. He was very much of a visionary and had seen development in other parts of the country. And part of the big thing over there was, well, if you want to sell lots of people, you got to have a store.
Okay.
And that's how the Chapin Company came into being.
Yeah. And so when Mr. Chapin joined y'all's business, y'all started Myrtle Beach Farms, as it was pretty much all about trying to develop Myrtle Beach at that point. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
I got you. At that point, who's at the helm for your family? Is it your grandfather still, or is it?
The fella that deserves a lot of credit, really, was a Mr. Bryan. He worked for the company,
Okay.
and he was an outside, non-family member. He
Okay.
was not a Burroughs. He was not a Chapin.
Okay.
And Mr. Bryan kept the two informed and did a good job of keeping the shareholders together.
Right.
And Mr. Bryan, he gets a lot of credit for what happened at the beach.
Is that right?
Sure did.
Yeah. So I guess Burroughs and Chapin then started trying to sell land at the beach and get roads and infrastructure in. Is that kind of what's taking place?
That was Myrtle Beach Farm.
Myrtle Beach Farms, okay.
Yeah. And then we had Burroughs and Collins Company.
Okay.
And then the Myrtle Beach Farms really was pushing the development. Later in time, not too many years ago, we merged.
Okay. I got you. May I ask you this question? Where did the Collins name come from? You had Burroughs and Collins early on in Conway.
Great granddaddy got in business with Mr. Collins, B.G. Collins, and pretty early on, he bought Mr. Collins out. He wanted out, and rather than change the name and have to go through all the legal work of changing that, they just
kept the name
Burroughs and Collins.
Okay. And in this time, was Burroughs and Collins still doing agriculture stuff in Conway when you're doing the Myrtle Beach Farms?
Oh yeah, Burroughs and Collins were in the timber business.
Okay.
We had the tobacco farm. We didn't operate a lot of the tobacco farms, but farmers or tenant farmers, you might say, operated them. And that's why Jerry Cox came to be. It was groceries, fertilizer, fuel oil, hardware. It was a mirrored the Chapin company.
Yeah. And Mr. Egerton, we're running out of time in this first episode, but we're going to pick it back up tomorrow. So
that'll be fine.
That'll be good.
Well, I want to thank you for this opportunity. And as I said earlier, there's a lot of families built this place, not just Mr. Chapin, and lots of families get credit.
Yeah, well, you're very humble and nice to say that. Right. Friends, as we finish up this first episode, we've learned a lot about early history in Horry County and on the Grand Strand. So I encourage you to come back tomorrow as we pick up this conversation.